Conference Vice Chair, Georgia Republican Congressman Doug Collins. Congressman, we noticed the markets coming off their lows here, convinced that maybe, some lemonade can be made out of these legislative lemons. What do you think?
Well, I think, that is a possibility we've got to look at now. But I think the real possibility here is that there's an expected of action. I think what has been talked about, you were just talking about it, and others, is the fact Obamacare is a miserable failure. It is the death spiral. Everybody talks about that. And what I'm trying to reconcile with voters and how we actually do it up here is taking this and not moving forward. That is the problem that we're confronting right now. And I think when we look at that, there is the hope that we can get this done, that maybe they've looked at the abyss and they don't like what they see over the cliff, and the Senate will then come back and say, here's some things that we need to do. But I just have to go back and remember, frankly, when as we look at this, I heard some comments earlier today where they actually said, well, maybe we can do a Democrat and get Democrats on board with this. And the reason that Obamacare was a failure was not because there was not Republicans voting for it. The reason Obamacare was a failure was a bad bill, and it was not good for the American people. We've got to keep reminding people of that.
Well, I know you keep trying, Congressman, but you so I'm wondering now whether this telegraphs trouble, even on the repeal effort, where some moderates are concerned that waiting a couple of years to come up with an alternative could leave people in limbo. How do you address that concern among some of your moderate colleagues, particularly in the Senate?
Right. I think it's a real concern. I guess the problem that I come back with here is look, we understand the difficulties in the House. We confronted those difficulties. We overcame those difficulties. We found something to move forward on. What is very frustrating, and I'm encouraging the Senate to continue this, they were very vocal in how to tell us how to not do what we were doing. I think mainly now because they realized they didn't want to deal with it. Well, now they have to deal with it. And I think we've got to realize that this is not an issue that you can just simply let go, because at the end of the day, and now let's cut off all the politics. So I'll talk about this in a sense and just talk about who this is hurting. This is hurting the young couples in my district, the older folks in my district, and all over this country who have lost their insurance. They don't have the doctors that they used to have.
Were you surprised then, Congressman, that a lot of people looked at what you were coming up with, not you specifically, but what Republicans were looking at, and being even more hurtful? So ironically, you were losing the PR battle with the very folks you were trying to convince you would be offering a better alternative.
Well, I think when you look back on it, there was a lot of PR hype for the Obamacare when it first came in, but when they actually began to look at later on, it was actually the failure. I think what we've got to do is simply say this is what matters. We're looking at Medicaid reform for the long term. We're looking at it from taking folks who are able-bodied and putting them into actual plans they can use. We've got to continue to make this case. The American people understand that. What we've got to do is do our job.
But
and
who's doing it? I mean, I know you tried. You've come on this show, and I'm always grateful for that. But very few of your colleagues are able to articulate what's going on here, that this is death spiral might be strong in the eyes of some, but that the math is not sustainable, certainly on this, triple-digit premium increases in a number of states. That's not sustainable. But that no one is stepping back and saying, for the efforts to gain millions more health care coverage, tens of millions of more are paying a hell of a lot more. Why were you not able to make that argument? It makes me wonder about how you're going to handle the tax cut argument, because already they're framing it as, well, here come the Republicans looking after their rich buddies and giving them some bonuses.
Well, I think what we've got to remind our members, and I've tried to do this as well, is being in Congress is not something where you just get to make a statement and be no or not having a solution. When we find solutions that we can come across and agree upon, that's when you have to learn, you have to study, and you have to go make your case. That's why we've been making our case here with you. I've been making it at home. That's why we do town halls. That's why I see people.
But I'm telling you, Congress, sadly, this might shock you.
Yeah.
All of America does not watch this show just yet, and we are working on it. Trust me, over time.
Well, we are definitely working on making that happen as well. But I think here's the biggest issue.
Who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? Now, you're up against the mainstream media that just called you heartless and mean and all that. You're used to that. I know you can take that. But how can you make the pitch that, look, this is out of control government, and just to sustain it, at the very least, would mean curtailing benefits and or hiking taxes considerably, just to sustain it.
Oh, exactly. Well, let's flip this, Nick. Let's flip this as we go forward and nip this in the bud this way. We're going to make the case, and we've already said that it's a death spiral. I want to flip it to my Democrat friends and others who are against this. What's your solution? What's your solution?
They don't need more money. What they're saying is they're going to let you blow this up, and it's going to be on you.
And I think that's the case that we have to make to the American people. This is not. This is something that is going bad.
Are we going to see tax cuts this year? What do you think? Because it's not looking good.
Well, I think at this point in time, we're focused on, getting this health care. I think tax cuts are the things that we're going to move and work on, and I think those are areas that, some have said that they want to work on. Well, we'll work on those. Let's get those together.
This
but
year?
Again,
it's
it's chewing gums. I hope so. I think it can be. So I'm a realistic optimist. I'm a realist that we're in a time which you have divide, and a lot of times people react off the last person that was in their ear. I'm also an optimist to say that we've got to put this country first and understand our people and make the case even when it's not popular. That's what leadership is. Leadership is making the case to make reforms and make something happen when you know it is the best thing to do, and it's going to take your time to actually make the case. That is my encouragement to the Senate.
You guys have 7 or 8 years to make the case. I know you've been working your hiney off on it, but the American people are saying, man, these Republicans, they can't see straight.
Well, I think that's just the issue that we have to work with. You talk about the numbers that we have, but we also got to realize that we're a team in this and that this is not an individual sport, especially when we're trying to get the votes.
All right.
We got to work these out.
Congressman, thank you. You're a good sport. I appreciate it. And again, just to remind you, I thought it would be a good reminder.